Senate, while Democrats regained control of the House of Representatives, and that could present a huge blow to his agenda. Democrats already have 222 seats confirmed, requiring only 218 for a majority in the House, while the Republicans have now 51 in the 100-seat Senate, with several states yet to be called. And it could spell some trouble for the Trump administration, as Democrats now have the power to provide oversight over his administration, including powers to subpoena, for example, his tax returns. For more on this story, we are joined now by international affairs analyst Professor John Stremlau, who joins us via Skype from Washington. Good evening to you, Professor. Our time. Donald Trump, while claiming a victory, has had a rough evening. Our time, getting angry with reporters who've been questioning his tactics and his strategy in the build-up to this campaign.
That's certainly correct, and you would expect him to declare a victory. That's his style, no matter what the facts of the matter are. In fact, these are battles in what is now a very important war over the future of American democracy, because what Trump has succeeded in doing is helping some key candidates in key Senate races to consolidate the Republican hold on the upper house, which has power over the judicial branch, but is also quite undemocratic in the sense that it reflects states being equally represented despite their very different population sizes. A critical Senate race was in North Dakota, which has 700,000 people for 2 senators, and California has 30 million for 2 senators. That's undemocratic, but that's where his power base is now. In the House of Representatives, which represents the new American majority, he lost that battle. He doesn't concede, but he lost that battle, and it's a big win for restoring some semblance of majority rule in America. But the fight is only just starting. This is the first battle.
Right. The Democrats obviously also have some questions to ask of themselves. I mean, candidates they had pinned a lot of hope in, particularly in states like Florida. Gillum didn't win there, and neither did the fiery candidate O'Rourke in Texas. Surely they've got some thinking to do about their own strategies.
Well, let me just say as a side, I wish that that Americans were as informed about the South African democratic experiment as you guys are about this one over here, but you're absolutely right. And in the case of the Southern candidates, however, much as I wanted to see them win, they were very progressive. Where Democrats have, the Democratic candidates, where Democrats have done well is in the Midwest, where the candidates were predominantly focused on practical issues of concern to voters like health care and education, didn't ever mention Donald Trump, and didn't suggest that they were really oriented toward, quote, identity politics, unquote. You know, this is a diverse country where each ethnic group ought to be fully secure in its own identity, but not make this a polarizing issue in elections. And I think the Democrats will have to sort out the after effects of this election, but I reiterate the big point, which is it did solidify the realignment that Trump has been driving to split Americans. So he would win, but he'd win by consolidating his control over a minority that dominates the Senate and the judicial branch now, and the executive branch. So that if the win in the House is the start of a Democratic surge, the big next test is obviously the 2020 presidential election.
Well, so far that blue wave didn't come. What next then for America, and what next for Donald Trump? Will, for example, the Democrats now use their power in their House not only to check his agenda, but, for example, get things like his tax returns, which he tonight said were too complicated for people to understand?
Well, he loves to obfuscate. He likes to hide things. This is a kind of a form of state capture that is familiar, I would think, to many of your listeners in terms of South African politics, where they throw up a smokescreen, including using disinformation campaigns and public relations firms. We have a counterpart to Pell Bottinger's around here, and it is true that Trump is going to be vulnerable to investigations. It's going to be a challenge for the Democrats to play this game or wage this war in a tactically smart way, because the American people if there's just screaming and condemnation, we'll get impatient. And the Democrats still don't really have the power to pass much legislation, but they can block Trump's worse legislation and claim that they're protecting Americans from worse things happening, and then try to bid for greater control and power in the 2020 elections, both congressional and presidential.
We'll have to leave it there, Professor John Stremlau. Of course, Donald Trump is going to be packing his bags, going to Paris this weekend, looking back, of course, on observances and remembrances from World War I. He'll take this as a triumph even on the international stage. Now, back home.